You might think I'm insane to use the words dinosaurs and traumatized in the same sentence, but there have been a few horror themed episodes of Dinosaurs, and there's one in particular called Little Boy Boo that traumatized many of us as kids, including myself, and I'm gonna be talking about that one today. I mean, just look at the top liked comment from my last video about dinosaurs, that tells you everything. There's no doubt that it's the closest that the show has ever come to horror. It's a terrifying true tale about a werewolf known as the Wereman that Robbie tells the baby, and it even features a twist ending that could have fit really well in a horror anthology show like Goosebumps. Now of course, it's not Dinosaurs if it doesn't have a bit of humour in there, and the humour is derived from the fact that it's a clear parody of the 1941 movie The Wolfman, and other old movies. We do have to admit that the scary episodes feel like a major deviation from the show's usual style though, because generally the show focuses on a regular family, except the family in question is a bunch of dinosaurs of course, who hilariously navigate their way through family struggles that we all know of, like marriage issues, raising kids, arguments between parents and kids, money problems and stress at work. I know what you're probably thinking, that sounds more or less like any other family sitcom out there, but I'm not finished yet, so keep watching. But first, let's introduce the family in question. This is Earl Sinclair, he's the father and the breadwinner of the family. He makes his living pushing trees over for a greedy f***ing corporation. This is the mother, Fran Sinclair, and she's the stay-at-home wife. I feel sorry for that poor woman because she has to look after an absolutely insane baby whose name is literally Baby. Here's Ethel, Fran's mother. She's the grandmother of Robbie, the teenage son, and Charlene, the daughter. Now let's continue. Dinosaurs was known for being different to other family shows because it had plenty of satirically conveyed social commentary that many of us didn't even understand in the slightest when we were kids. It deals with themes like homosexuality, sexual harassment, sexism, racism, addiction to drugs, war, corporate greed, and the list goes on. I'd be here all day if I was to list everything. That series finale that you all seem to be obsessed with is a great example of corporate greed shown. All of those themes are hidden behind a goofy dinosaur family sitcom. You know what? I've missed today's most important theme, horror. Horror themes were very rare for Dinosaurs. I can literally only think of like 3 episodes that had a horror plot. Today we're talking about the absolute scariest one of all 3, Little Boy Boo. But just before we talk about that episode, there's something very important that I have to tell you about the show. If you didn't know, Jim Henson, the famous puppeteer responsible for creating the Muppets and Sesame Street, also created the idea of dinosaurs before he died. After Jim died, his son Brian took over for the project and brought in Michael Jacobs and Bob Young to bring the idea to fruition. They managed to get it up and running by 1991, and it ran for 4 seasons until 1994. I never knew Jim was involved as a kid, even though I was unhealthily obsessed with dinosaurs. The most memorable part for me has to be that introduction where the dad says,
"Honey, I'm home."
Although I am aware that many of you associate it with the line "not that mama," and to all of you, shut the f*** up, okay? Anyways, welcome back to Crack Attack. I'm sure I've bored you to death enough at this stage, so let's just have a bit of crack and get into the episode finally. Little Boy Boo opens up with Charlene complaining about potentially being late to her play tonight if Fran doesn't get a move on. But Fran is too busy pampering the baby. Earl comes in and he also complains, saying that he's been in the car for far too long. And then he emphasizes what he just said by saying it again.
Just your mother and me in the car. 10 minutes.
Poor Earl.
I'd like to spit on your head.
I mean, I'd lose my shit if I had to spend 10 minutes alone with Ethel. And it appears Earl has lost his shit. I don't blame him. Then it's revealed that the whole family are going to Charlene's play, except for Robbie. He's the babysitter, and for good reason.
To avoid Charlene's play, I'd be willing to throw myself down the stairs, sustain severe head injuries, and eat through a tube the rest of my life.
Well, Robbie, personally, to avoid babysitting Baby Sinclair, I'm willing to throw myself off a bridge, sustain severe injuries to every single part of my body, and not eat at all for the rest of my life. I'd rather just go to that play. The baby gobbles down a cookie that he wasn't even allowed, and then scares the living shit into poor Robbie by pretending to choke on it.
Huh? Are you okay?
He sounds like a f***ing crow. And then pretending to die.
Huh? You can have the cookie.
He already had the cookie, Robbie. We cut over to the show's absolutely iconic intro where Earl says,
Honey, I'm home.
and then back to Robbie, who clearly hasn't managed to resuscitate the baby by simply offering him a cookie. Robbie decides to call an ambulance and rhetorically asks himself what the emergency number is.
911.
911.
But then he catches on and realises that it was all a piss take. When Robbie tries to bring him up to bed, the baby basically tells him to f*** off and that he wants a scary story instead. Robbie starts off by saying that he was walking a girl home from a date during a full moon. This scene directly mimics the movie The Wolfman, by the way, where Larry walks his date Gwen through a dark, misty gypsy camp. In this case though, Robbie thought that it would be romantic to cross through the graveyard. I'll tell you one thing, ain't nothing romantic about a graveyard, unless you find zombies attractive. Then a rabid caveman shows up and bites Robbie on the arm. This is once again a straight up parody of The Wolfman, except in that movie, Larry leaves his date Gwen and rushes to save her friend Jenny after hearing her scream. This is shortly after Jenny went to a gypsy fortune teller who discovered a pentagram on her hand. That was a sign of her being marked to death by a werewolf. And guess what? The fortune teller himself was the werewolf, and Larry couldn't save Jenny. Instead, he got bitten and passed out. This is all important for what's to come, by the way. Robbie passes out, of course he does. Then when he wakes up, he pays a visit to who is seemingly his grandmother Ethel, only in this case she isn't. She's a gypsy fortune teller, so once again, they're parodying the Wolfman. He shows her the pentagram on his hand, and he tells her that he was bitten by a caveman, but she denies this and says that it was
A wereman.
What?
So we know now that Robbie was bitten by a werewolf, and when the moon is full he's going to transform into a werewolf himself. Robbie wonders if there's a cure, and luckily for him there is.
You must subscribe to the channel right now.
I'm joking, what she actually said was,
You must strike yourself senseless with a club of the purest silver.
which is clearly just a mockery of remedies in your typical monster horror movies. Instead of beating himself with a silver club, Robbie beats himself with a f***ing spoon, because there were no silver clubs in stock in the shop. Obviously it doesn't work, and Robbie transforms into the Wereman. If you didn't catch that, I said the Wereman. Right now, Baby Sinclair looks absolutely petrified, even though he denies this.
Scared yet?
No.
Robbie then goes on to explain that in the story, as the Wereman, he goes into a rampage. And then he wanders through the Sinclair family's house and comes across Earl and Charlene, who are munching away like fat bastards on what appears to be cake. Not anymore, because they waste all the cake by throwing it at the werewolf, who they say looks more like
a stinking hairy caveman.
Apparently the cake scares away the wereman. Right, okay then. Next time I have an intruder in the house, I'll pop over to the fridge, take a piece of cake out and I'll throw it at him. And then when the wereman is long gone out that door, Earl and Charlene change their perceived description of him.
Some sort of strange, inexplicable creature.
I'll let you guess what Earl and Charlene decide to do next. Well, have you made a guess?
Aha! I'll call the angry mob.
Oh, the number's on the fridge.
Thanks.
We cut over to the wereman who's attempting to attack Robbie's girlfriend, but he actually doesn't manage to even lay a hand on her by the time the mob shows up. Which is literally just Earl, Charlene and two random lads, by the way, to hunt him, and then he escapes. In The Wolfman, the werewolf actually strangles Gwen and causes her to pass out, and that's when the mob shows up, and the werewolf doesn't in fact escape, he gets killed. Now obviously they can't have Robbie getting killed because he's part of the Sinclair family. If that happened, it'd be even darker than the ending. The mob here in Dinosaurs kinda reminds me of the mob in Frankenstein. Anyways, Robbie asks the baby if he's scared yet, and he denies it once again.
No way! Can't scare me!
Oh yeah?
So Robbie decides to take it a step further, telling the baby that there's more than one way to end the curse. One other than smacking himself in the face with the spoon, of course.
This could take hours.
In the story, Robbie returns to the fortune teller, who's clearly aware that he's lying through his teeth.
You said there was another way to end the curse.
I did?
Yes, remember?
Oh, right.
She tells him that the only other way is to eat the toes of a misbehaving baby who won't go to bed when he's told. I wonder who that's describing.
Help! Help! Mama!
Now, I'm sure you're all wondering how this came to be. Why the f*** is Baby Sinclair hanging from the roof? Well, I'll tell you why. Because just a moment ago, Robbie revealed to him that everything he just told him wasn't a story at all. And he's about to turn into the Wereman. That twist could have fit perfectly in a horror anthology TV show. Specifically one for kids like Goosebumps. And that's when the baby somehow managed to leave his high chair and climb up onto the roof, even though Robbie claims he was taking the piss.
Hey, come on, I was only kidding.
Robbie confesses that it was only a story, but the baby doesn't believe him.
You're just saying that cause you want me to calm down so you can eat my toes!
So to get him down, he promises him cookies, but there are none left. And then he promises that he'll get him some, along with as many sweets as he wants, by knocking on the neighbours' doors and begging for them. An obvious parody of Halloween as a holiday. That doesn't work out well.
Get lost!
And that's where the episode ends. Well, actually, not really, because this is the episode where the iconic song
I'm the baby, gotta love me.
I'm the baby. Gotta love me.
first appeared. And it's catchy as
I'm the baby and you gotta love me.
me. I'm the baby, gotta love me. Wap-bop-bop-bop-bop-ba-da-bum. I don't know the lyrics, so I'm just gonna scat a bit. I know what you're thinking, shut the up, and I'll do that, okay? I apologise. I kinda got carried away, you know, cause that song is insanely catchy.
I'm the baby, gotta love me. Big purple eyes, I'm very cuddly.
I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head for the rest of the day now. I think many of you who saw this episode as a kid can agree with me when I tell you that it was absolutely traumatizing. I definitely watched it as a kid, but I don't actually remember it too well. In my mind back then, it was just that scary episode of Dinosaurs that had a werewolf in it. I'll tell you one thing though, I definitely remembered that song from the end. I mean, who can forget a song like that? But we're not here to talk about the song, which by the way is the opposite of traumatizing. We're here to talk about the episode we just watched, Little Baby Boo. It was an obvious parody of The Wolfman and many other old Monster B movies. But obviously as a kid who grew up in the early 2000s, I wasn't sitting around watching old black and white movies. I'm gonna be honest, I thought they were boring as shit. Although nowadays, one of my favourite Christmas movies is It's a Wonderful Life. So yeah, I wouldn't have understood the reference. But here I am as an adult and I understood every single detail that they parodied. At least I think so, and I hope so. From the beginning, where Robbie is walking a girl home through a graveyard, and then he gets attacked by a werewolf that at this point they call a hairy caveman. Of course, the wound was a big deal, so he passed out. In The Wolfman, Larry and his date walk through a dark, misty gypsy camp rather than a graveyard, and instead of being ambushed by the werewolf, he ambushes the werewolf when he heard it was attacking Jenny. That's when he got attacked and passed out. Let's continue. There's also that point shortly after where Robbie visits a gypsy fortune teller and shows her the pentagram on his hand that he sustained from being bitten. In The Wolfman, it's not even someone who was bitten and cursed to transform who the fortune teller discovers was marked with a pentagram. Instead, it was Jenny, who was literally only at the gypsy camp for entertainment. She just thought it would be a bit of fun to get her fortune told. But little did she know that she would be marked for death for no reason at all. And probably the most over-the-top hilarious spoof in there was when the fortune teller revealed the cure to Robbie, whose face was enlightened with hopefulness. She told him he had to beat himself with a silver club, which let's admit is a piss take out of old Monster B movies where the only cure is to kill yourself. Just like in The Wolfman where Larry makes his father tie him up to prevent him from killing, and makes him take a silver cane to protect himself if he transforms. It's pretty obvious that the silver cane would be used to batter him to death. And finally, there's the part where the mob shows up with pitchforks and an intent to kill. Robbie escapes with his life, but in the Wolfman counterpart, the werewolf is killed. That's all the parodies that I could pick up on, but I could have missed some. So if you managed to spot any more, let me know in the comments below. And you know what else to put in the comments below? Any other episodes from Dinosaurs that you want me to talk about, or any other episodes from other shows you want me to do as well. Thanks for watching this episode of Crack Attack, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, nice one.